As a fitness professional, you know the joy of helping others, and you know it's more than just fitness. We're training the whole person. Wellness coaching provides expertise that goes beyond fitness and nutrition. It's a holistic approach to helping others become their best selves while reaching their goals. To us, there's no greater joy than that. Join the fitness leader. Become a fitness leader. Become a certified wellness coach. Go to nasm.org/wellness.
Hello, everyone. I am so glad that you have joined me here today on Strong Mind, Strong Body. I'm your host, Angie Miller, and today we're deep diving into a topic that I think is so crucial for your mental health and your happiness. It's bulletproof boundaries, safeguarding your sanity at home. And if you recognize the title, it's because this is part 2 in a 2-part series. Last week, I did bulletproof boundaries, safeguarding your sanity at work. So if you missed that, I hope you'll check in. So my question for you is your personal life overrun by guilt trips or draining relationships? If so, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to explore how to build unbreakable boundaries at home without burning bridges. So, whether you're dealing with family drama or an overbearing partner, this episode, I hope, is going to be your blueprint for personal freedom. But before we even deep dive into this topic, let's talk about why boundaries are so crucial. Boundaries are this invisible line that define where we end and others begin. They're not just about saying no to people. They're about honoring our values and protecting our energy and making sure that the relationships that we do have are as healthy as they can be. Dr. Nidra Glover, I'm not sure how to say her last name. It's Tawwab. She's a therapist and she is the author of Set Boundaries, Find Peace. And she says that boundaries are actually a form of self-care. She states that boundaries are the distance at which I love you and me simultaneously. I love that. I love you, or I love you and me simultaneously. She says that I define boundaries as a verbal communication or an action that you communicate to someone else in order for you to feel safe, secure, and supported in a relationship. And at the end of the day, isn't that our goal in all of our relationships? We really want to feel safe and secure. We want to feel validated. We want to feel supported. So if boundaries help us to do that, then I say let's get on board and set some healthy boundaries. So let's start by recognizing boundary issues in personal relationships. Dr. Henry McLeod is a clinical psychologist, and he's the author of Boundaries: When to Say Yes, when to say yes, and how when to say yes, how to say no to take control of your life. Boundaries define us, Dr. McLeod says. They define what is me and what is not me. So how do we know if the boundaries we're setting are working? Well, let me ask you this. Let's just take a moment and do a little reflection. How often do you feel resentful, or how often do you feel like you're being taken advantage of in a relationship? How often do you struggle to say no to requests, even when you know you don't want to do them, even when you're super overwhelmed? If you're nodding along, then you might have some boundary work to do. So, besides feeling resentful or unable to say no, here's some other red flags that say, you know what, maybe you could tighten your boundaries a little bit. Maybe you would say yes to this. Do you feel responsible for other people's feelings or problems? Do you often feel like you need to fix them or save them or rescue them? That's kind of a way of saying, do you feel responsible? Another one is, do you overshare personal information? That is a boundary red flag. Maybe you are the always go to person when people need a favor. So you're the yes girl or guy who is always the person that somebody comes to when they need a favor. Maybe you neglect your own needs to please others, or maybe you feel anxious or uncomfortable when you set boundaries or when other people set boundaries with you. So, if any of these resonate, don't worry, because I think that awareness is really the first step to change. And sometimes, just when somebody asks you questions, because sometimes you might be like, I think my boundaries are fine. But then, if I were to ask you, well, do you feel responsible for other people's problems? You might say yes to that. Or do you neglect your own needs? You might say yes. So, let's kind of deep dive into some strategies. Let's dive into our first strategy, which is shutting down people who are manipulative, including pushy relatives. So maybe we've all been there. Like Aunt Karen insists that you attend every family gathering, or maybe your cousin is constantly borrowing money without repaying, and you feel like it's time to put a stop to this. So let's do a practice exercise. Let's think about people who are manipulative or they're very pushy, and you always think, gosh, if I would just say no, or I'm going to say no next time. But somehow they always kind of whittle their way in. So I have a practice exercise for you. So last week, I talked about the importance of saying no. I did that boundaries at work episode, and I talk about the importance of saying no. So I want you to think about someone in your life who's draining you, someone who you feel like takes advantage, and for some reason you haven't been able to say no to them. Reflect on that person or that situation, and then choose a simple, clear phrase and repeat it calmly, no matter what the other person would say. For instance, let's say that Aunt Karen is like, I really need you to come to this picnic because everybody is coming. This is our annual family reunion. You could just practice a simple statement like, I'm not able to attend at this time, but thank you for the invitation. Or I'm not in a position to lend you money right now. And then just practice saying that out loud. I really think it's about being proactive. I think a lot of times we say yes to people who are very pushy or very convincing. And maybe they're good at making us feel guilty. And so we have this tendency to get ourselves trapped into these situations. But I think if you think ahead of time and you come up with a saying that you could say each time that it happens, and you're consistent with it, you're probably going to get better and better. Remember, Brene Brown says that daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves, even when we risk disappointing others. So, again, if you reflect on last week's episode, I gave you lots of different ways to say no, but one of them is just to have that simple statement that you repeat over and over again. So, another way that you can set boundaries to help you yourself in your personal life is to talk about transforming your home into a sanctuary. And yes, this is a boundary because I think that we all need a space where we can be alone with our family, with our significant other, or with ourselves. We're social creatures, but we do need time to reset and reflect. So, in my opinion, one of the best ways we can set boundaries is that your living space should rejuvenate you, not drain you. So, if you live by a lot of family or a lot of friends, it's important to set clear rules about who can visit and when. I've had a lot of clients over the years tell me that, they love living by family, but it feels like they've got this open door where everybody's always popping by or, calling at all times or stopping by unexpected or unannounced. I think it's okay to have these clear rules and to have these no drop in policies or these quiet hour policies, if you will. So I had a client named Kim, and she was constantly stressed because her in laws were always showing up unannounced. So we worked on just kind of crafting a message to her in laws, not in the moment, because I really think that when you talk about boundaries, it's important not to be reactive, but proactive. If you try to set a boundary in the moment, it often can make the other person defensive or make them feel embarrassed or uncomfortable or it makes you feel like you're in a confrontational situation. So I think it's better to be proactive. So Kim and I came up with this saying, and she said, we love seeing you, and we would also love if you could give us more notice before you visit. Could you maybe call or text ahead of time? I encourage Kim to use the word and instead of but, because but can be a disqualifier. And truthfully, two things can be true at once. So it's something to the effect of, we love to see you, and, right, we need proper notice. Because if it's, we'd love to see you, but all they really hear is the but, like, oh, here it comes. She's going to, kind of disqualify. It sounds like they really don't want to see us. And you do. You just want proper notice. So it took some repetition, but it took some repetition and some practice for Kim, but it did wonders for her peace of mind. So let's talk about, kind of tough boundary challenges like family drama and overbearing partners. So let's break that down. Let's talk about family drama. I don't know about you, but I have four sisters, tons of nieces and nephews. It feels like there's always some form of family drama. There's always some situation going on or something where somebody's in a situation with another person. So when it comes to family drama, remember that you can love your family without being involved in every single conflict. So here's a strategy. Just imagine that there's like a force field around you. And drama bounces off of this field unless you choose to let it in. So when family members try to pull you into their disputes, you could just try to say something like, I care about you both. And that's why I think it's best that I support you both equally without getting in the middle of this situation. I hope you can work it out. So it's a way of saying that you love them both, you support them both, and you want to be available to both of them without getting involved, because then it's choosing sides, and then the next thing you know, you're in the throes of the fire, and then nobody is around to help anybody because you're also in the midst of the drama. So, for persistent family drama stirs, just make sure you set clear limits on what you will or won't discuss. So, you might say something like, you know what, I'm happy to talk, but if the conversation starts to turn to XYZ, then I'm going to need to end the call. So, maybe it's a situation like, I'm happy to talk about anything, but if the conversation starts to turn into the situation that you're experiencing with this other family member, then I think we should end the call, because again, I don't want to, I want to support both of you. I don't want to get involved in a conversation where we're talking about the other person. Just make sure, again, anytime you're talking about boundaries, set them up front when you're not in the throes of a situation. So you don't have to worry about confrontation. So that instead of reacting in the moment, you have this preventative measure. You get to be proactive and talk about how, or think about how you're going to manage these situations when they arise. So, again, I'm Angie Miller, and I'm talking about boundaries, how to set boundaries at home. And last week, I talked about how to set boundaries in the workplace. So, I want to talk about overbearing partners, setting boundaries with overbearing partners. And this is tricky because at the end of the day, if they're your partner, I'm going to assume you either love them or you care very deeply about them. But I also think that love demands respect and trust. And respect and trust means that we do have to have healthy limits. So before we continue, though, I want to clarify that while I'm a mental health professional, I'm not providing therapy on this podcast. So if you're dealing with serious relationship issues, I hope that you'll consult with a licensed therapist or counselor. But let's talk about setting boundaries with overbearing partners in everyday situations. I thought about some things that I hear commonly from clients. So these are partners that may not mean harm, but their behaviors can still be really frustrating, and they can be truthfully a boundary crossing. So, for instance, maybe you have a partner who always interrupts you when you're on the phone. I know I have a sister whose spouse always interrupts her when she's on the phone. I'm like, you two live together. Why does he always have to talk to you when you're on the phone? To me, that's a big boundary. Okay. So if you have this partner who's always interrupting you when you're on the phone, whether you're talking to a friend or you're talking to a sister, you're talking to your brother, always expecting you to say, hold on a minute, and then addressing them. then I think it's important that you kind of address this with your partner. In this case, you could say something like, I would love to talk to you. I would love to help you. I would love to answer your questions when I'm not on the phone speaking with somebody else. So let's discuss these issues when I'm free. And of course, this would be when you're actually not on the phone. Maybe you hang up and you say, hey, I'd love to talk to you about something. When I'm on the phone, I'm wondering if that can be a boundary where, unless it's a true emergency, you don't interrupt me at all. Okay. Sometimes this might happen too if you're out to dinner with a friend or you're having a personal outing to get some alone time. I don't know about you, but I've been with lots of friends whose kids text them the whole time that we're together, or their partner texts them the whole time that we're together. And I think, gosh, I wonder if this always happens or if this is a special occasion or there's an emergency going on. So they may not mean any harm. Sometimes people just want what they want, and they don't consider how interrupting you might affect you or those you're with. And so I think it's important to address your concerns and set parameters around the time that you spend with others and the time that you spend with yourself. And again, I can't emphasize it enough. Not in the moment, but when you're not on the phone or you're not having that outing. And I think I statements are really, really powerful. So I feel frustrated when I'm interrupted when I'm speaking to a friend. Can we talk about healthier ways to discuss, or when we can discuss situations that you want to talk about? Or maybe before you leave for the outing, you say, in order to be proactive, you say, hey, I'm going to dinner with a friend, or I'm going to the park to read. I would appreciate it if whatever concerns you might have, you could table them unless it's a true emergency, and don't interrupt me or call me or text me over the next 2 hours or 3 hours. Or maybe you have a partner. This is another one. I had another client whose partner tended to make plans for both of them without checking with her first. And, it was done not in malice. It was just one of those things where he was a very big planner and he loved to make plans. And so he would come home and say, hey, I got these tickets to this concert, or hey, I told so and so we could go to dinner with them Friday night. And as much as she might like the couple that they're going to dinner with, or as much as she loves the concert, she's like, I wish you would just check with me first. So, just make sure that you could just say, hey, I appreciate your initiative. I love that you're so good at planning. I would just like us to make plans together. So do you think that we could discuss things first before you make any commitments or any, social engagements? So, another common issue with partners is sometimes you have a partner who overshares personal information with their family or friends. So, like, you share something with them about your family or your friends or your job, and then they're talking to a family member and they might start sharing what you told them. Just, I don't know, maybe they're looking for something to talk about. And I think you can say to them, hey, I'm kind of private about certain things. Can we agree on what's okay to share and what I'm sharing with you that needs to stay between the two of us? So remember, setting boundaries, it's not about controlling your partner. It's just about communicating your needs respectfully and clearly. And most partners are going to appreciate knowing how to make you feel more comfortable and respected in the relationship. So what do you think? These are all different ways. I think that sometimes I'm going to give you some kind of exercises too at the end of this show, just to kind of think about where you might be lacking some boundaries, or where you might be able to set some boundaries in your life that might free up some personal time and make you feel like kind of less burdened by other people. So let's talk about romantic relationships with a partner where they're not being overbearing, but maybe you just want to improve your relationship. Maybe you just want to make sure that you have super healthy limits so that you both feel seen and heard and understood. So Esther Perel, I love her. She is a renowned psychotherapist who I love. I read her book, Mating in Captivity. It's awesome. That's just my personal opinion. But Perel emphasizes the importance of maintaining individual identities within a relationship. So she's really big on each person in the relationship having separate interests, separate friends, and having alone time, because she believes that each partner in the relationship needs to maintain their personal autonomy. They need to have their own interests. For one, because it makes your relationship more interesting. Because when you come together after, say, your partner went golfing for the day, and you met your friends to go to a networking event. When you come back together, you both have very interesting stories to share, and it just makes your relationship more dynamic, and it reminds each of you that you each have a life outside of the relationship. It's just more multidimensional. So here's something you could practice with your partner. You could, each of you, write down 3 boundaries you'd like to establish or reinforce, and then you could share and discuss. This could be anything from, hey, I would love to have 30 minutes of alone time when I come home from work. Or I would love to have one weekend night just to pursue my own thing. So encourage one another, support one another, and know that it's actually going to strengthen your relationship. Spending time apart hopefully is not threatening to each of you. Hopefully it's a good thing because, again, it can help your relationship flourish. So let's also talk about, cultivating, energizing friendships, really healthy friendships. Jim Rohn famously said, "You are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with." So it's crucial to surround yourself with people who uplift and support you. So let's talk about something you could do called an energy audit. So, if you have a piece of paper or you want to do this at some point in time, list your 5 closest friends. If you don't want to list 5, list your 3 closest friends. And after each name, write plus if they leave you feeling energized, or minus if they leave you drained after interacting with them. This simple visual can be super eye opening. But I would take it a step further. After listing those 3 or 5 closest friends and marking them with a plus or a minus, now write down specifics. Like, what is it? What are specific behaviors or interactions about that interaction with that person that either energizes you or drains you? This kind of helps you pinpoint more effectively. So, like, it could be something like every time I'm with my friend Tim, or every time I'm with my friend Michelle, they always listen without judgment, plus, 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 right? But when I'm with my friend Matt or when I'm with my friend Maggie, then they tend to dominate the conversation with negativity. So then that's more specific. Like, what is it about those interactions or that relationship that either really makes you feel energized or really makes you feel like, oh, I'm exhausted? So this insight allows you to be more specific about your boundaries. Like maybe you could limit venting sessions with Matt, or schedule more one-on-one time with Michelle. Okay. So I think that being really specific here matters, because it could be that your friend is normally energizing, but they're going through a really bad divorce, or they just lost somebody close to them. Well, I think it's fair that they're not going to fill your bucket and fill you with energy. I don't think we can expect that from people all the time. But I do think that if it's just persistent and it's been going on for a year or more, then that's fair. So here's another way to do an energy audit. You could list your regular activities like work, hobbies, exercise, reading, whatever it is, however you spend your time. List as many or as few as you wish. And now rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 over how energizing or draining they are. So just like with relationships, then go back and write specifics about that activity that sustains you or drains you. So it'll help you kind of determine, what do I need more of? What do I need less of in my free time? Okay. Also, it gives you insight into where you want to set healthy boundaries. So if you join a women's networking group, and each time you go to a new event, you come away and you feel like a +9, right? Because you're like, that makes me feel so good. I met new people, I have new contacts. Or maybe you come away and you're like, oh, I feel a 1. I feel so obligated and I feel like I'm on the whole time. You kind of know then, hey, maybe I invested in this and I thought it would be a good thing, but I learned that it's not really the best thing for me. Okay. So then you could go back, look at your schedule, see how you're spending your time, and then determine where are my negotiables and where are my non-negotiables. So in this hyper-connected world, I just want to make sure, and I tapped onto this last week, not forgetting about digital boundaries. So I think that it's easy to feel like we should be constantly available because it feels like our phones are like connected, like they're a body part anymore. But I think that it's okay to have digital boundaries, and I think it's really important. So it can really help a romantic relationship, right? To talk about this with a partner. Hey, can we talk about like maybe having 1 hour each night where we go device free? Or can we have an hour every morning where we go device free so that we just share breakfast together without anybody looking at their phone or their laptop? And this is also very, very helpful with kids because nothing is worse than talking to your partner or your friend or your child, and they're not really looking at you. They're looking at their phone or they're looking at their device. Nothing makes us feel more unseen and unheard. So I think a few tips for digital boundaries is again, set no phone times during meals or the first hour after waking up, with or without family and partners. In other words, even if you live alone, gift that boundary to yourself, right? Like tell yourself, hey, when I wake up, I'm not checking anything for a full hour. I just want an hour to drink my coffee, pet my puppy, and be alone with me and my thoughts. So before we close up, I want to kind of address the elephant in the room, which is guilt. Because here's the deal, when we set boundaries, a lot of times we're ridden with guilt. And some of that is self induced, and some of that is that some people are good at kind of making us feel guilty. And I know that no one can make us feel any way we don't want to feel, but some people are quite good at being manipulative. So it's normal to feel guilty at first when you set a boundary. But remember that you're not responsible for other people's feelings and their reactions to your boundaries. So when it comes to boundaries, guilt often stems from false belief. We might think that we're being selfish or that we're responsible for other people being happy with us. But challenge these thoughts. Just ask yourself, is it truly selfish to take care of my own needs? Am I really responsible for how others feel about my boundaries? Remember, setting boundaries isn't about controlling others, it's about taking responsibility for you. So try this. When you feel guilty, just ask yourself, would I advise a friend to feel guilty in this situation? Because often we're so much kinder to other people than we are to ourselves. So I have a couple of final thoughts for you when it comes to boundaries, just a couple of exercises that you could do. Okay. One of the things that I've had my clients do is make a not to do list. So these are things that you're not going to do, that you're no longer willing to tolerate or accept or invite into your life. Like, I will not answer work calls after 7 p.m., or I will not keep my ringer on when I sleep. So I have adult kids right now, but when my kids were growing up, I slept with my phone on 24/7. It was like I was always half awake for years and years and years. I never wanted to turn my phone off because I never knew who was going to call. Now I'm like, that's okay. You know what? Whatever it is, it can wait. So, my challenge to you is write your not to do list and try to come up with 3 to 5 things that you're just not going to do anymore. It could be very, very simple. And then last but not least, just a boundary visualization. So imagine your ideal day, your like pie in the sky day, free from interruptions, no must do's, no shoulds, no demands. What boundaries would you need to set into place to make this reality? So really think outside of the box. Where's your time going? What time is left? And how can you free up more time? And what would happen if you took a you day? So, your homework, if you want homework, if you like homework, your homework this week is choose one boundary you want to establish or reinforce. Write it down, practice your response, commit to reinforce or to commit to enforcing it. And remember that your journey to bulletproof boundaries starts today. So, thank you for tuning into Strong Mind, Strong Body. I'm Angie Miller, always here to remind you that your mental health is just as important as your physical health. So, take care of you inside and out. I'll see you next time.